That's not what I said.
Okay, then Babu, it's my fault.
Careful of using.
Okay. Careful of using the word security.
As I said initially also, these all issues become very relevant perhaps even today also when you start going to public kind of stuff. Because that's where we have no system of any today for certification or assessment. We do not know how the data is operating and what kind of the whole structure is behind. But the moment you say that they are doing it to a private cloud, for which I said they are perhaps quite ready. A lot of these issues which become very serious and grave actually become non-issues when we are getting into, as you say, what are government policies, which is government data centers, which should be within the country. So all this are compliant to a degree. So yes, but I mean, this definitely can become an excuse if I in any case want to study somebody. I mean, I can always find, and it has been time and again, raised at various forums, so everybody, whether IT or non-IT, is pretty aware. But that perhaps seriously is not the issue. See, even if you look at it in terms of procurement of cloud services also, we do not have any models. We really need to work on those things. And while I think there has to be, as they are saying, there has to be a spirit of collaboration amongst these. So let's all, agree to a fact that while we have it, there has to be some kind of a policy or some kind of a regulation which has to drive this. Otherwise, it's on my interest that I like him, I trust him, I can do department frequency, but in the long run, these things somewhere may again settle up. These things normally get driven by a champion, and a person is driving, things will go. But then, how long does this an issue? So you need to have some kind of a directive, you need to have some kind of a policy through which this whole initiative should be covered. Whole initiative has to be directed. So therefore, and when I see, particularly cloud, I am not seeing a separate cloud for GST and separate cloud for income tax and separate cloud for services. I was perhaps looking at a much larger, because as we know, all of these taxes and all are generally periodic. You will still have huge infrastructure lines, again we have that optimum utilization. So if you have these kind of situations, so policy and reform is definitely one thing which is needed. And more importantly, in terms of services, because you were saying NIC, in NIC we have been actually doing cloud for much before what we have been doing. We have 7,000 websites, and all these websites run on a set of infrastructure. Nobody knows, none of the government department knows on which particular server which particular storage box is storing, right? Or on which particular data. Is that it was not cloud that time? We used to call it shared services. It may not have a self-servicing component of it, but in terms of using the pluses of that cloud service, where you have elasticity, anytime somebody says, look, he calls me in the evening, tomorrow I need 2 terabytes food. It is just that one mail or please, then he gets 2 terabytes. If somebody is looking for 24 cycles 4, 24 core 4, it just doesn't take him, because the whole shared services, 7,000 websites, just run on less than 300 servers. That's how we've been running today. We've been running for the last 10 years of services. You can be cloud, it's a huge cloud application. And the department also had never had an issue. Because it saves them all those issues of managing servers, procurement and things like that, whenever these kinds of services are concerned. Our mail services, if you look at it, they run on a center. We do not have separate mail servers for separate departments. But now, since it is cloud, it has this particular component. If you have self-servicing, you need to perhaps, if needed, have to have pricing models and all. So that way, readiness is not an issue. But as you were saying, in private sector, because there is no demand. So demand and supply really go hand in that way. So I have not seen even today, I've been very interested that anybody has come and said, can you give me this capacity in terms of cloud? They still ask me these machines, they ask me virtual machines. Because many of times self-servicing is perhaps not an objective, they just need and then somebody manages. So it's a kind of, in essence, the capacity within the government to run a private cloud, to offer cloud services is very good. It is just somebody has to really give it a science by directive. Like suppose for each project, that's what I'm saying, for each project we write separate servers. Now these servers have already landed in your data. Now after that you tell me, no, you should have gone for a cloud. Where does this now, what do we, there is ownership. He also has to be accountable. These 100 servers which he has bought, how will he justify use of these 100 servers? I cannot combine my infrastructure, licensing issues, maintenance issues, all those issues start. So if the problem has already happened now, how do I solve it? Then you land up having those small silos. So we perhaps have to address at that place itself whether this application should have had separate set of 10 servers or we should have moved on to a cloud.
Okay.
Then obviously there is issue. I definitely agree with the issues of service presence, which definitely one has to do. But the whole thing has to be perhaps governed by some kind of policy.
Mr. Ramaswamy, if I maintain the liberty of reading between the lines, you said that cloud computing is absolutely brilliant, but what is that but?
Anyway, I'm not a journalist to read between the lines. See, but as you rightly said that even just before the last question you asked that security. See, you look at it evolving. For example, in the olden days, no one thought about keeping the jewelry and ornaments in bank lockers. They thought the house was the most safe place. No one wants to keep it outside home. But today, everybody wants to keep their jewelry in bank lockers. So over the years, the technology changes, the perception changes, the risk involvement, we need to go over with other things. For example, 2 years back, we also talked about security as a real concern for cloud. Today, for certain services, our security services in cloud. Because we know that, because when you talk about security, you need firewalls, you need intrusion protection systems, you need encryption, two-factor authentication. All of us may not be the experts in the field. When somebody is having a services as a specialist, we can link them and get it done. That's what that's why when you talk about this impediment, whatever the today's impediment, definitely it is going up. But today's the major concern which I was talking about, your interoperability. How will we ensure that I'm not going to get into vendor looping? How do you know that I'm going to get my data back, my cloud service contract before? Because we need to be transparent, we need to follow the system. What happened after when it's over? Whatever the communication protocol between the cloud services and the satellite services. Somebody rightly said that how will we ensure that the programs which is running there are cloud ready, because it's a response time is very, very important. So how will we take care of it? A couple of definitely impediments and constraints always will be there. The technology is moving very, very fast. I believe cloud services cannot be just like shared, it's innovative. The way we look at the customers, as everybody knows that TCRI is going to be over. Consumers having their own devices, there will be multiple devices, multiple form factors, multiple operating systems. I don't think it's possible for us a single company or individual. The whole business is not IT can be their requirements. If everything is going to be in cloud, the consumers in IT is totally going to change their entire paradigm. So naturally, every company has to move towards cloud computing, only in the time and the cost.
Let me just check the time. We've already crossed 8, which means that I'm way over my 55 minutes. So what I'll do is that I'll, with Venkat's permission, another 10 more minutes, and I'll directly ask the floor to put forward the questions to any of the panelists. And maybe we can start with a question.
I'm Mukesh from TCS. My question is to Chairman panel and Satyarayana, he's already left. Is that I didn't think I had such a big question. Okay. The question basically is that I agree it has to be a sharing model, but where Neeta Verma brought it out, the e-governance aspect is a state subject. And as long as each state is looking at it as an acquisition model rather than a service or an outcome model, I don't think that concept of sharing will ever come, because if it's a state subject, I should be independent to decide what I buy. And once I am independent to what I buy, and the Indian procurement systems are such that every time it will be a different thing, so you will have the same Swami's handbook implemented 37 times all over the country. Okay, so one is the whole thing has to become changed from an outcome has to become an outcome rather than an acquisition stuff. Okay, only then it has to be clouded. The other comment I would want to understand is the bandwagon of everything we put on the cloud. So we have to be very selective on the first few applications which we want to put on the cloud. Okay, because I would not say security and all is a major issue. They can all be taken care. But the key is there are something which are suited on a cloud and something which are not suited on the cloud. So if the states are going to pick up wrong examples of the cloudy applications, then I think so, there will be the problem here. So that's where we are looking at DIT trying to suggest the whole thing. And the other problem is going to happen is that if state data centers are going to be the cloud environments, so you are going to have 37 varied clouds. And how do you make these 37 varied clouds talk to a center which may have another 30 or cloudy infrastructure? So these are a few things if the panel guys can answer.
When you talk about this acquisition thing, why is the acquisition happening?
That's
This is how the government works.
Yeah, that's how it is.
There is no alternative. Right? Today, if there is an alternative which is cheaper, it's clearly cheaper than that, and then you say that this alternative is available, and this is the trusted agency from whom you can take. It could be NIC, it could be BSNL, it could be some other entity that we have which is government share. You say this is the one for which, and it is cheaper. You think any self-respecting government officer will put his thing across the procurement thing? No. No. Next day CNA will be there. Next day they will be there. They'll ask you a question. Today, you don't have this framework to say that these are the models. This is the model which is cheaper for all these range of applications. And then nobody dare spend public money for buying a server and taking it like Geeta was saying, sitting on idle. Nobody can do it because the CNA audit will now start factoring that. If you go and start today, they are not doing it. Next year, maybe next year, they can actually go and see what is the extent of usage of their server, and they can start making objections on that. Why is the server 80% unused? They can ask these questions. So slowly we create this ambience around this thing that you have to use it, you have to maximize your usage. There are alternative models. These things become. Today there are no such structures. We are at very early days.
Mr. Krishnan, just to add to what you said, are there any best practices that you would want to share since you've implemented the National Information Utility and you've obviously got a lot of state governments on board and you've interacted with the state governments? Are there any best practices that you think can be shared with this group?
One is we are still in the process of doing that. You've come a long way. So anybody else has to start, he has to traverse the same way. Therefore we can share a lot, but we are nowhere near having on final thing. That is number one. The best practice basically that I will share, which I learned is that you actually to do all these things, you have to get down to the water and do it. Do it. You cannot sit and do PPTs. You will never get to. You do a project, create a situation where sharing is required, where infrastructure sharing across states is required. Create that, the suggestion which I got for sharing an application. We were trying to drive the project. It came from a state government. He said, this utility I have developed. This I know. 11 other states are doing the same thing. They all have to develop the same thing. Why do you have one guy develop it? The idea came from the guy there. Because they're doing something, they realize, okay, you go ahead, we'll share. So, you create this crucibles where sharing is going to happen. And from these crucibles will come the use cases for sharing, for cloud, for infrastructure.
I saw someone, yeah.
I can be loud. Yeah, you can use my mic. I am SP Singh, former Senior Secretary, Department of Information Technology, and I have been dealing with state data centers as a mission director in the DIT. Well, I think it's a certain observations which I thought I should make for the benefit, and maybe the panelists can react to that. I heard Sri Lanka talking about is citizen services If citizen services is the main focus of government and the underlying principle, is government cloud the way to go? Number one, I think definitely no. And second thing, Rita said that private sector doesn't have the capacity. I think there is enough capacity these days being built by the private sector with all the resources, with all the expertise that they have got, and have been investing quite a lot. I think they can provide a lot of services which can get onto the cloud. Third thing is, I think security is scaring everybody. And shouldn't that we should get scared and don't move forward? And this is the question even coming in the state data center. And let me tell you, the state data center is a private cloud within the state. And all the departments within the state have been asked to leverage on that data center, which has been created by the government with a lot of investment going into it. I think the state government is doing a lot of good work in that direction by giving general, government orders that no disparate or parallel infrastructure by any department in the state would come, they will have to leverage on the state data center. I think we are moving in a way towards cloud in the government. Third thing is that collaboration and the sharing is the mantra for cloud. And the first thing which can go onto the cloud is the storage. I think the storage demands every day has been increasing. I think much less about server utilization or underperformance, underutilization of the servers, and getting into the post-mortem details as Krishnan also mentioned. CAG is always reactive. Say this didn't happen. A lot of investment has gone, there is a low ROI, or there has been underutilization. Why can't we are proactive? I think this kind of policies can come from DIT. They can be mandated for all the state governments to be, because they can exert that pressure onto the state governments. And that is the way one can really get onto the serious business as far as cloud computing or cloud storage or cloud application or as an infrastructure is concerned. This is what I want to say.
Any of the panelists want to say?
Only one point is, except that Beri said that cloud is not necessary for citizens' thing. I think it is just inevitable. You just can't today deliver whatever you are promising under the National Economic Plan. I can show it back of the envelope calculation. You just don't have the capacity to do it in the country. If every project in the country, if every one of the 1,000 municipalities is going to go and procure servers and do an AMC and do that contracting, every project requires about 5 contracts, 5 tenders. You don't have the capacity in the country to do it. You can get all the experts you want, you can feed all these consultants in all those places, still not even 10% of it you can do. You don't have that. So the only way to do it is to share. And that is why it's not happening today. And it will never happen. I mean, you can show because those numbers are not there. You have about 2,000 or 3,000 projects required over the next 2 years. Where are their numbers? 2,000 projects, you need 4 guys each project, you need 10,000 people who know tendering and procurement and all that. Where are you? So you have to move to a different model. And this is the only model today, the shared model.
Adding a point to that, I think if you look at from a state government standpoint, can I say, one of the biggest issue is the capacity of the people of how many projects they are able to handle and deliver. Now, with that being a core limitation, if you have sort of a project running somewhere else, and you just have to reuse that, the amount of effort required by these trained IT people usually comes down by some 60-70%. Only 20% effort, you will be able to do that. Much lower cost, much faster delivery, much less bandwidth required. And usually it is the bandwidth which is limiting the extent of work.
This was to close at least.
Sarma, you wanted to respond?
Going much beyond.
But yes, I agree with you in the sense that if you really go on the website and you go and talk to, I'm not trying to undermine anybody. I'm like typically people who are offering cloud services today in India, the private offices. I'm not talking about the companies who are giving solutions around it, but are people who have really implemented and offering a cloud capacity. Yes, if you go and talk to them, they will ask a lot of them. Almost everybody will have that bouquet of services around some name of cloud. But these trusts, I've tried to talk to quite a few which seem to be sort of leading service providers as far as cloud is concerned. Today there is far away from what is really expected to be running any critical cloud application. There are lot many things needed to be achieved before this. So that's what I was actually mentioning, capacity, not in terms of just the physical capacity, but the processes and their sensitivity around all those things when you're dealing with these kinds of applications, particularly government applications, is perhaps not more happening yet. That was I was referring to when I was saying. Another thing which got missed out when we are saying what is government's primary motivation to get into the cloud. One problem which I am seeing very often is we have set up these 35 districts. We have our own 6 national data centers which are running. Now to run these services on 24/7, though we have all these private partnerships and things like that, people are there who are running those. But somewhere if it is government infrastructure, government needs to have some kind of strategic control. Today to run these services, even if one data center, you need qualified, you need an experienced manpower to be placed in each of these areas. And that is very difficult. Even if you have good people, keeping them in law on your payroll itself becomes an issue. So, and as the number of data centers are increasing, as the services are increasing, the requirement of this kind of manpower is also increasing, which is with government funding. Obviously, we are not saying LC and L4 kind of services to be taken up. You need to have capacity, even if you have a private partnership, to be able to take it up from here and give it to someone in case of things. You don't have manpower that kind. And within NIC are taking it. So to me it looks that if we get to the cloud, our requirement for manpower to manage these services will also be. If remotely sitting here with one set of applications I can manage across all. That also becomes one of the very huge motivation to sustain these kinds of operations.
Venkat, you wanted to ask a question? I think then I'll close the questions, or maybe one last question if somebody wants to ask. Okay, then I'll just close the question.
I'll just add a comment. I think there was an issue mentioned around 37 cloud, 35, 40 cloud, theoretically which are possible. See, again, to make it, what is the potential answer from a government, from a national level? Can we make these 41 into one governmental body? And a lot of thinking around that has been done. Technologically, having been a part of thinking of this thinking, it is not a huge technological challenge. It's not a standardization challenge either. Relatively. The biggest relative issue is the ownership issue. We are a federal government. There are 35 owners, plus 136 owners, which is where the GST model comes in very, very well. If we are able to set out the business rules and the administrative and governance principles right, once again, when I'm harping, I'm trying to sort of steer the discussion away from technology time and again. Sorry for doing that, because the impediment for creating one national sort of infrastructure, and there was the main point also for that national information infrastructure. Number of presentations, number of things on that have happened. The biggest impediment is who will own it, how will the governance work, etc., etc. We need to find ways of solving that problem. I'm sure there are so many brains in this room and in this country who will find the solution to the technology.
Thanks, Mr. I'll just quickly sum up the discussion in a very broad manner. The way I see it, and I'm sure most of the entire room would agree with me, is that Nobody here in this particular panel sees cloud computing as an insurmountable challenge. It's something which is inevitable, at least that's the bottom line of this entire discussion. But the other part which is, slightly ironical is the fact that you have a governance challenge, and the governance challenge seems to come from the very federal structure and the federal nature of our country. And the solution which seems to be advocated primarily by Mr. Krishnan, Mr. Ratan, is the fact that you need to have a certain centralization. And for me that's ironical in the sense that you're looking at some centralized body, a centralized code of conduct, a centralized institution, and in trying to implement a cloud computing solution which is essentially meant for decentralization. So in that sense, it's slightly ironical. I must thank the entire panel for such an enriching discussion. It has been an intense discussion. I obviously have a complaint with Venkat that he should have, at least kept 2 hours for it, but that's Venkat's prerogative. Thank you so much for coming here and having this discussion, and I hope it has been enriching for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Swaminathan. May I now request Mr. Sunil Mangalore, Managing Director, CA Technologies, to present a memento to our panelists.